Hello everyone, have you ever faced a moment when giving up felt like the easiest option? That voice in your head saying, why keep going? It's not working. You're not strong enough. Maybe this just isn't meant for you. We've all been there. But what happens when, against all odds, you don't give up? That's what I want to talk about today. Not just the results or the victories, but the process, the fight, the small wins, the setbacks, and most importantly, the growth that happens in between. Not giving up isn't about perfection. It's not about pushing blindly or pretending everything's okay. It's about continuing, even when it's slow, even when you're tired, even when progress is invisible. Persistence is more than just trying again. It's a mindset, a decision you make every single time you're tempted to let go. Now, let's be honest, giving up often looks logical. It feels like the smarter path, especially when you're stuck. It might feel like self-care or even self-respect. Why keep pouring energy into something that's not working? But here's the twist. The moment you're closest to giving up is often the exact moment something is about to shift. Because pushing through resistance doesn't just get you results. It builds you. Think of any muscle in the body. You don't grow strength by staying comfortable. You grow by lifting just a little more than you think you can. And in the process, your body adapts, your character works the same way. Struggles are not the enemy, they're the gym, they're the resistance training for your spirit, and sometimes you don't see the gains immediately. You question whether it's worth it. You compare yourself to others who seem to be gliding through life. But here's the truth. Most of what looks like success is built on years of private persistence. People don't often post their failures, their breakdowns, their nights of doubt. But if you could peel back the curtain on anyone who's achieved something meaningful, you'd see a long trail of moments where they almost gave up, but didn't. Let me give you an image. Picture someone walking through a tunnel. It's dark, they've been walking for hours, and finally they sit down, exhausted, thinking, what if this never ends? So they stop. But what they didn't realize is that just a few more steps ahead, the light was starting to appear. That's what quitting does. It freezes you right before something breaks open. Now, let me flip that image. Imagine you do take a few more steps. You keep walking. No spotlight appears, no applause, just the next small step, but that's enough. Because persistence doesn't need instant reward. It is the reward. Every time you move forward when it's hard, you are changing. You are becoming. You are rewriting your story from one of fear to one of strength. So if you're in that tunnel today, don't let the silence fool you. Keep walking, not because it's easy, not because you're sure, but because strength doesn't show up before the struggle. It's born inside it, and that's when the real change begins. When we talk about not giving up, it's easy to think it's just about personal growth or internal strength. And yes, that's a big part of it. But what's even more powerful is seeing what happens in the real world when someone decides to hold on just a little longer than what seems reasonable. Because every time someone pushes past a moment of doubt, they leave behind a trail of proof for someone else who might be struggling. Think about Thomas Edison. We've all heard the story. Over 1,000 attempts to create the light bulb. Can you imagine that? 1,000 failures, 1,000 times something didn't work. Most people would have stopped at 10, maybe even 5, but he kept going, and when someone asked him how it felt to fail so many times, he said, I didn't fail. I just found 0 ways that didn't work. That kind of thinking, that kind of grit, didn't just lead to an invention. It led to a shift in how the world functions. Or take someone more recent, someone like J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, it was a story rejected by publisher after publisher 12 times. She was broke, depressed, and raising a child alone, but she kept writing. She kept believing, even when the world told her no, and that persistence didn't just create books. It created hope for millions of readers. And even more than that, it reminded countless struggling writers and creators that failure isn't a wall, it's a detour. These stories matter not because these people are famous now, but because of what they did before the world noticed them. That quiet, relentless refusal to give up, that's what makes their success powerful. But it's not just the well-known stories, it's the everyday ones, The single mom who keeps working 2 jobs to provide for her kids. The student who fails a class but decides to try again instead of giving up on their dreams. The small business owner who launches their idea in a garage, gets no sales, but keeps showing up anyway. These aren't headlines. These are human stories. They matter because they remind us you don't need a spotlight to be strong. You just need to keep going. And here's something else that's easy to miss. When you don't give up, you're not the only one who benefits. That persistence you carry, it radiates. It shows up in how you speak, how you lead, how you lift others. Your example becomes someone else's blueprint. That's the ripple effect. When someone sees you trying again after falling short, they think, maybe I can try again too. When they watch you rebuild after a setback, they think, maybe my situation isn't hopeless either. You become proof that resilience is real. You become a mirror for someone else's courage, and often you won't even know it's happening. Sometimes the people you inspire are watching from a distance, quietly, carefully, taking in your story like oxygen. This is why your persistence matters so much more than just achieving a goal. You're not only building a result, you're building a legacy. Every time you don't give up, you're showing someone what's possible. You're giving permission, sometimes silently, for others to believe in themselves again. That's not small, that's not invisible, that's impact. And maybe that's the greatest reward of not giving up. Not just who you become, but who you help others become along the way. So the next time you feel like giving in, remember, someone, somewhere, is watching how you handle your hard days. Let them see strength. Let them see you continue. Let them believe again, because you chose not to quit. As we've seen, not giving up changes outcomes. It creates impact. It inspires others. But perhaps the most powerful transformation happens within you. Because what really changes when you persist is you. When you keep showing up through failure, disappointment, rejection, you don't just move forward, you evolve. It's not just about reaching a goal. It's about becoming someone who's capable of achieving things you once thought were impossible. That's the real victory. The process of not giving up doesn't just lead to strength. It builds it. You stop seeing failure as something to fear. You start to understand that failure is just information. It's a part of the process, not the end of the road. And with each setback you overcome, you begin to carry yourself differently. Your confidence isn't just surface, level anymore. It's rooted in something deeper, proof. Proof that you've survived, that you've learned, that you can keep going. That's the kind of confidence no one can take from you. You become more resilient, more resourceful. You start to trust yourself in ways you didn't before. And maybe that's the greatest transformation. Not the change in your circumstances, but the change in your identity. You go from hoping things will work out to knowing that, no matter what happens, you will not stop trying. But let's be real. Sometimes what holds us back isn't just fear. It's the myths we've been told about success and what it looks like. Somewhere along the way, we bought into the idea that if something's meant to be, it'll be easy. That success should feel natural, like a gift we unwrap instead of a mountain we climb. And if we hit a wall, maybe it's a sign to stop. We've been taught to value talent over effort, to believe that people who succeed must have had something special from the start. But that's a dangerous lie, because if you believe success belongs only to the gifted, then the moment you struggle, you think you don't have what it takes. Here's what's true. Effort beats talent when talent doesn't try. The people we admire most, whether in sports, music, business, or life, aren't always the most naturally gifted. They're often just the ones who stayed when others left, the ones who practiced longer, who fell and got back up again and again. And every time they did, they got stronger. Quitting often disguises itself as logic, as a smart exit, and yes, sometimes we do need to pivot, to reassess, to rest, but that's not quitting, that's adjusting. There's a huge difference between changing your method and giving up on your vision. We have to stop confusing resistance with a red light. Sometimes it's just part of the process. So if you're facing something hard right now, something that feels uphill, Don't let those old beliefs creep in. Don't assume that because it's tough, it's not meant for you. Maybe it's tough because it's shaping you into someone who can actually handle the dream you're chasing. The truth is, anything worth having will test you. It will stretch you, it will try to break you, not to stop you, but to reveal how badly you really want it. And when you push through that, when you hold your ground, you begin to understand that the real goal was never just the outcome, it was the becoming. So don't give up, not because success is guaranteed, but because you are not finished yet. By now, we understand that not giving up isn't just about reaching the finish line. It's about who you become, what you inspire, and the strength you build. But the truth is, even when we want to keep going, it's not always easy to know how. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we keep going when things get messy, when we're tired, discouraged, or just unsure if it's worth it anymore. First, persistence doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's just showing up. One more email, one more workout, one more conversation. When the big picture feels overwhelming, shrink the focus. Don't think about the next year. Think about the next step, the next hour. One of the most powerful things you can do is set micro goals. Small, achievable steps that move you forward, even if only by inches. Progress isn't always visible. You can be growing and not even see it yet. That's why tracking helps. Writing down your wins no matter how small. Because on the days you feel stuck, you'll need reminders that you have moved forward, that you're not where you started, even if you're not where you want to be yet, and you don't have to do it alone. Surround yourself with people who won't let you forget why you started, people who remind you of your strength when you've forgotten. You don't need a huge circle, just a few voices that speak life into you when your own voice goes quiet, and sometimes you will be that voice for someone else. Also, allow yourself to rest. This isn't a race of constant motion, it's a journey of intentional progress. Resting isn't quitting, it's refueling, it's pausing so that you can continue with more clarity, more energy, and more heart. Don't confuse burnout with weakness. Real strength includes knowing when to breathe. Now, let's go deeper, because beyond the tips and tools, there's something even more lasting, the legacy of endurance. What happens when you don't give up doesn't end with you, it echoes. Long after the goal is reached, long after the struggle is over, your story remains. The way you handled adversity becomes part of how you're remembered, and it's not just about legacy in the grand sense of the word. It's about your children watching you keep going when things got hard. It's about a friend who quietly found hope because they saw you fight through your pain. It's about a stranger who read your story, heard your voice, or witnessed your journey and thought, if they can keep going, maybe I can too. That is the power of not giving up. It turns moments of personal struggle into shared humanity. It bridges the gap between isolation and inspiration. You may never know the full reach of your perseverance, but someone out there is being moved by it. Someone is watching, someone is learning from how you rise, so when it gets hard, and it will, remember that your effort is never wasted, even if you don't see the results yet, even if no one applauds, even if you have to do it in silence, because every time you choose to keep going, you are making a mark. You are living proof of what's possible, and someone out there is waiting to be inspired by your story. Don't let them down by giving up. Thank you.